So I'm Carrie in Benton County, and I think everybody is gone except me, but usually it would be Carol Truba, Linda Ramsey, Maria Faria, and we've also been getting help for this latest effort uh, from Marcia Swanson and from Michael Dumel. So thanks to you two who we drafted onto the team for this project. Nancy?
I'm Nancy in Lynn County and on my team, because apparently we can't get it together to travel to cool places. We just stay around here. So here we all are, Brenda, Steve, Mark, and Susan, who's gonna tell us what she's seen in the chat.
All right, lots of good ones. Somebody is just bringing their flag. I think that's always good to show, we are patriotic. No faux kings, liberty and justice for all, tax the rich, be a voter, science matters, truth matters, democracy matters. This one I love. Democracy is not a spectator sport. We all deserve better. No kings in America since 1776. And when law ends, tyranny begins.
Thank you. And Mark, you want to let people in? All good. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna get going, and we're gonna be focusing on the No Kings and what it means to mobilize. But before I forget, I want to specifically thank Jennifer, who said, what a great idea, an invitation. And Molly, who, when I said, we're thinking of doing this, was like, I'm in. So, it's like we actually listen to everything each of you says. I know, amazing. Okay, we're going to jump in with slides, and we've already looked at that, but let me do the slideshow. Okay. Um, so it's not a packed agenda, and we're thinking not going to be a very long meeting. We're going to have some words of wisdom and inspiration, and then we're really focusing on the No Kings, how we're inviting people and why it matters, and it's the same whether you're going to be handing out leaflets or whether you're just going to be talking to people, it's all relevant. So we'll look at the plan. We'll look at some of the main points, including and focus on the key role of nonviolence. We'll do some role plays, and we're going to actually be looking for some interactive role plays. And then the good of the order, a bunch of opportunities coming up. So some of us have already been out canvassing. Some of us have yet to canvass. So we're going to start out with the nuts and bolts, and then we'll really get into what's happening. And if you're already talking to people, plenty of time to share what you're hearing. A spoiler alert, a lot of it's going to be really good.
Thoughts for the moment. Our security depends on trust, and trust depends on relationships. Something else that the grassroots can teach other sectors, the press, businesses, etc., is that our capitalist model is built on competition, but the moment calls for cooperation for the greater good. And I like this little cartoon. It's showing people who aren't quite sure if they can do it. When they walk through this little machine, they become activated. And I know one of the things I've been saying to people as I've hit the doors today is that we don't have to agree about everything. We just have to agree that we're working to save democracy, and that's how we cooperate.
And I was struck by the second one about competition and cooperation. And just a couple of examples. The first is how Jimmy Kimmel got his job back, because all the other late night hosts, everybody who had skin in the game, forgot that they're all in competition and all cooperated on message. And what if all the universities did the same thing, right? And had their eyes on the prize rather than their own benefit. And so thinking about that and thinking how we can support that is something we want to do. You are muted.
Phooey, could you read my lips before? Okay. So leaders we need. As our Attorney General, he has been constantly active, cooperating with other AGs to file suits for relief from the federal administration's egregious overreach and improving online information and community outreach to protect vulnerable Oregonians. Thank you, Dan Rayfield. And I would just add, leaders we need, a leader we have because of the work that we all do and others like us do across the state. So I think we can take a lot of satisfaction from Dan's leadership.
Oh, that's so perfect. Thank you. And I don't know if people saw this. This is the first page of the decision saying that when you try to deport um, students who are on green cards or visas and have spoken up, exercising their First Amendment rights, that's a violation of the Constitution. That everybody in the United States has First Amendment rights. And this is so unusual that this judge, who was a Reagan appointee, on the first page of his decision, and for people who aren't in the legal profession and read these things all the time, this just doesn't happen. And what he did before he wrote his, what has been described as scathing decision, he copied this postcard that came from an anonymous source to him. Trump has pardons and tanks. What do you have? And he said, Dear Mr. and Ms. Anonymous, alone I have nothing but my sense of duty. Together, we, the people of the United States, you and me, have our magnificent Constitution. And here's how that works out in a specific case. And, what an example of somebody using what he had to inspire and really encourage all of us. And then I threw this in because one of the neighborhood leaders shared this with me. This is something she put together with her grandson. And pretty much, that thing about I know your mother, when sometimes you yell at kids who are, running amok in the neighborhood. This is sort of a riff on that, right? That for all the troops to think, behave as if your grandmother was watching you certainly beats behaving as if the president was watching you. Okay, so the plan is all of you who have already let us know that you want to participate should have a PDF voter list. In Lynn County, it came or comes from Steve. And in Benton County, it comes from Linda. And then from Carrie and me, you should have gotten instructions on how to pick up the materials you need. So I am going to stop sharing. I know, don't make me call your grandma. Is there anybody on who is is volunteering and hasn't gotten a list or doesn't know about how to pick up the stuff? Ruth.
I
Okay.
just checked my email and I haven't gotten it.
Okay. Carrie is making a note. And they could still be going out. Anybody
Right.
else?
I'll look in spam too. But
Okay.
I usually get Linda's messages. Thank
Okay.
you.
Is there anybody on who hasn't volunteered and really, is wanting to do it? Okay, and since we're all looking at each other, how about this? We'll keep asking questions. Who, and in Lynn County, remember, we're scrappy, so we always have to start sooner. And, Benton County maybe starts a little later, but, generally pulls ahead in the end. Oh, whatever. We're still proud of what we do. Okay. Anybody in Lynn County has already begun talking to voters? Okay, so we'll have time to share what we're hearing. The rest, other people, if you have any questions about getting your materials, put them in the chat and Brenda will answer or Carrie will answer. Okay, back to the slideshow. So what we're want to show you is in the slideshow, for those of us who are doing this, we want to include both, well, the flyer, obviously, but also talking points and other resources that might be of use to you. So we'll go through it pretty quickly, and then we're going to stop looking at the slides and kind of talk about stuff. So I have found two things. First, for people who aren't young anymore, this is very small, but so far everybody's been able to see it. And that I end up talking a lot about the 3.5% and, why that matters. And we'll see what other people say. So some people who are out in the country and mailing, this is, or if you're, not everyone's home and you want to leave a little message along with the flyer, Pam Keller and Mark came up with this and we thought it was pretty great. And so I am sharing it. It will be in the slides. Okay, actually, I was wrong. I have more aids after this, and we're going to take a break and talk about these things: the role of mass mobilizations, the importance of consistent engagement, the key role of nonviolence, and then the benefits of those who participate in actions and being active. And we're talking about these because we find and we believe these are the major points that really come up in our conversations. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan to start us out.
I have found that talking about that 3.5% figure that we've read, that historians of tyranny have said, if you have 3.5% of the population consistently and peacefully pushing back, change always happens. And when I talk about that with people, that really seems to resonate with them, because 3.5% doesn't sound like that many people. So it's an easy way to say we have to continue to grow our movement till we reach that point. And we also want to remember that, like today, people that I've talked to have been very upset about what happened in Chicago. Totally understandable. But as time goes on, whatever the latest thing is kind of what's on people's mind. So as we're doing this, we're responding to all different kinds of issues. But the bottom line is We want to support and maintain democracy so that we continue to have free and fair elections and we continue as citizens to have a say in what our government is doing. And another way to kind of look at it, and I liked that idea that I think it was Jennifer who said that it's an invitation to come and join us at the protest. You know, people like to be invited to join in something. It's not, if you phrase it that way, it's not like a job. You know, it's like it's an invitation to come out and be with a lot of other people who feel the same way that you do. And if we can also focus not only on the horrible things happening that we are opposed to, but also focus on our vision for what we would like our country to be. Because we all know we've never lived up to the tenets of the Declaration of Independence, even though we've worked toward them. So keeping in mind a vision and a goal for the future, I find is a way to I don't know, stay hopeful and keep working, keep pressing forward.
And the part about consistent engagement, because that's the other part of the 3.5%.
That just means we don't, it's not a one-off, right? We have to continue to be contacting our legislators, you know, being on the streets on Friday afternoons when we can, doing the going to the protests, writing letters to the editor, whatever the things are that you are able and enjoy doing, we need to just keep doing them and keep our eye on the news as we hear about more protests following this October 18 one. We were just talking earlier about the total shutdowns that they're able to do in European countries where, you know, just everybody goes on strike, stops spending money, stops, you know, driving, stops using public transportation. I don't know that our country is ready for that yet, but I think that's something that we might have to work toward. So consistently staying engaged, which doesn't mean you can't take a break when you need to. We all need our little mental health breaks, but don't go away forever. Keep active.
And one thing that I talk about, and that has come up in conversations I've been having, is there is a belief that I think is pretty valid that, you know, how the Democrats folded in the first go round of the continuing resolution, and that then millions of people came out for the first mass protests, and then millions of people came out for No Kings. And there's a belief that the Democratic leaders saw, look, there are all of these people who are willing to stand up, and our message to our leaders is, we're here and you better be here too. We're behind you. You need to be in front of us. And so right now, as we know, that's super important. Anyone else talking to voters and talking about that mass mobilization? Or you just have thoughts that you're intending to say?
I went out today. I have a horrible cold, so I didn't want to knock on a door. So anyone that was outside, I talked to, and there were a few. Some of the things, well, one thing, I wrote up a little note saying, "Hi, this is your local Democratic neighbor, and we're inviting you to this No Kings rally." But I also stuck on the tail end of it. If you don't feel you can rally, drive down and honk at us and show your support, figuring some people might not be comfortable standing on the sidewalk for whatever reason, but almost anybody could drive by. And we ran across one couple because Rod goes out with me. And we walked up and the guy says, no, not interested. And the woman kind of looked at me, and then she went, not interested. And I said, well, if nothing else, you can drive by. She can sneak out to get an orange Winco and drive by. So I thought that wasn't a bad thing. The two concerns I heard was, one person asked me, is it safe? And I said, it's been very safe. People are very polite. They're very kind. They're helpful. They don't block traffic. And it's fun to be in a group of people that you all kind of like. And they kind of got a big grin on their face and say, yeah, I'll probably come. So 2 points that I ran into. Mostly I put it on doors and hope for the best. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anyone else? Bob?
Yeah, I've completed most of my list, and I went back to people that weren't home the first time, and so I ended up getting probably 90, actually talking to probably 90% of my people, and I've had really good response for the most part. But I'd start my conversation by saying, I know I recognize you. I've been here before. And they usually say, yes, I remember you. And I say, well, in the past, uh, I've always been here to talk about upcoming elections. Well, there aren't any upcoming elections, but there is a rally that I'm inviting you to, and I explain what it's about and that it's nationwide, that hundreds of communities are involved in it, and I've had really, really good response. A lot of people said, yes, we will definitely be there. A lot of people say, well, we're going to at least seriously consider it, but I've had really good response.
And I know, so I was out yesterday and today, and one person is like, well, I'm going to be in Indianapolis. I'm like, see this scan code? There's going to be action in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Another person was going to be in Chicago. It's like, no worries, you can do it there. And, it's one of the really nice things about this time, wherever people are. And then the other thing is, have an afternoon activity here, go to Lebanon at 11, right? In church and going out to eat afterwards, no worries. Albany is at 2 o'clock. It's whatever your calendar is, we can accommodate you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the nonviolence, and that's a part. If you look at any of the writing about these events, peaceful, nonviolent are words that you will see in descriptions of the events and the philosophy of the organizations. And I think it's especially important for us to think and be ready to talk about that, simply because the language of the administration is so violent and creates these images of war and violence and conflict, that it's going to be more and more important for us to consciously think about and articulate our position, and our work is nonviolent and peaceful. And for those of us who are are around long enough to remember the civil rights movement, I think what that taught, certainly people of my generation, was that dedicated, courageous nonviolence. And I think I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, that I don't have to tell you that it takes a lot more courage to be nonviolent than to be violent, and a lot more integrity. Nonviolence is what made the violence of the oppressors backfire, right? And I think we've all seen the footage of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, or the fire hoses turned on the kids in Birmingham, right? And those were images that changed the course of history, because you can talk about things, you can write about things, you can cause people to doubt. But when you're looking at something that so clearly says, these are who these people are, right? These are the people who are kneeling and praying. These are the school children, and these are the people unleashing violence. I don't mean to say we're going to experience violence, but I do mean to say that we have a lot of power in articulating nonviolence, right? That our vision of the country and our vision of how we are together and with each other is steeped in and based in nonviolence. Anybody else?
I had a couple of voters today concerned about safety, and it was pretty easy to talk about our history so far this year and our plans, and to let them know that it's unlikely that we're going to be having concerns about that. We have to be aware and we have to educate people and pay attention, but we're not going to be the source of the problem.
Yeah, and I don't know if people know that there's the ACLU is having a Zoom tomorrow at 5 about de-escalation and nonviolence at protests. I think I've got it in the good of the order. If I don't, I'll put it in and I'll drop it into the chat. Okay.
Bernadette's got her hand up.
And I was going to say, Bernadette and Maria, love to hear you talk about plans. Yeah.
So we are going to have some security marshals and people sort of keeping an eye on things. In June, we really had no problems. And I did not have enough marshals and security people keeping an eye on things. It was just me we are collaborating with the Albany Police Department, and they kind of have a presence where they'll keep an eye on things, but they want to stay out of it. So last time they set up on top of City Hall and had a direct line to my cell phone, and they would like let me know if they saw something of concern, and I would go there and tap people on the shoulder and say, "You can't use a megaphone because I don't have a permit for it," that sort of thing. So the one thing that I do wish that I so it seems like the spot, if you are very concerned, do not stand right at 4th and Ellsworth, is what I would say. That is where the most activity was. And I'm going to talk to the PD actually about whether we can have like traffic monitors, like little, grade school people with stop signs to help people cross the street and stop cars. We had some people doing some very performative street crossing from our side. And then the MAGAs with the truck were being kind of performative, and it was extremely scary from someone who has sort of a liability for what's going on. So we're going to try and avoid that. But there were zero problems. I mean, none. The police were much more lenient than I was about being like a narc and saying, "You can't do that." So they're very chill, and they had no problems with anything or anyone really. So that's the word on the security situation here. Past success does not guarantee future success. So we're going to try and be a little bit more attentive and a little bit more prepared. And yes, so the Monday training will be happening, and I'm hoping that it'll be recorded because I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. And there'll also be like Indivisible has a couple of things and checklists and things like that are really helpful to keep in mind. And to keep in mind broadly, I mean, we had on Friday at our honk and wave, there was a gentleman who was maybe a little snozzled who came and talked to us very forcefully, and had opinions, and how to address, someone like that who's not really threatening, but who's really annoying. And I could see where some people might get concerned. Cheryl, right there, knows. She was part of the de-escalating him, and he was harmless. But it's good to know, to have like a set response that you know what you're supposed to do instead of just floundering and and trying to make a point, because making a point isn't really gonna do anything. So
Yeah.
that is it regarding security, and more details pending. If someone here is dying to be a marshal and to wear a vest or an armband, you should give your email to Nancy
Or put it in the chat and
or put it in the chat, and
Okay.
I will be getting in touch with you. So
Maria.
Hi. Corvallis. Sorry, I have COVID, so I'm kind of
Oh,
slow.
are you kidding?
Yeah, I do have COVID.
Oy.
Yeah, it sucks. So, it will be slightly different this time. We try to do protests, add something different each time, so people don't get bored that it's always the same waving. So we're going to have a march that's called the Parade of the People, just a few blocks downtown. And then we'll end back at the courthouse with we call the Dance of the Files. So it's going to have an element of joy to counteract this ugliness, darkness. So we have had extremely good results with our marshals. Many of them come again and again, volunteer. We'll have a larger number of marshals this time because of the march. So we're hoping to have about 20, and they always wear the yellow vests, and they have a pole with a orange flag to help with crosswalks. We'll have several different organizations, as has been happening every large protest, with tables and distributing information. We'll have the first aid table too. We have speakers, but mostly art. So the second half after the march, it's going to be community art and joy. That is the goal to contrast. As far as safety, we have been very safe. Our people are trained in de-escalation. We always have a final training with someone from Indivisible who has a Marine background. So really thick skin and can talk people through facing any challenges. So any questions? I see Carrie.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I just want to, brief testimonial that I did the crosswalk stuff for a couple of the rallies, and it's really fun. People are very grateful. You're contributing. It was just really great, and if I were going to be there, I would definitely do it again. It's a wonderful way to participate. You also can kind of help, set the tone of joy when you're doing your flag in the crosswalk and dancing to the music, and then everybody, yeah, anyway, it was just really great. So I'd say that. I'm actually, most people heard me say this earlier, I'm actually out of town for the month. So I'm going to be going to the rally in San Diego, which is going to be very large, and going with some old friends from junior high school. And one of them was a little, like, not really too worried, but like asked about safety. And I just use the same line I use with family and friends when I go backpacking by myself, that the most dangerous part of the trip is driving to the trailhead. So I think really for all of us, the most dangerous part of the day is just riding our bike or driving to wherever we're going to be. Doesn't guarantee anything, but our risks are far, far higher in just our everyday life than it will be with a group of wonderful, like-minded, peaceful people, and a lot of trained marshals, that can help us all be safe.
And I want to say the most disruption I've ever witnessed in one of the local events was in the first Trump, when it was the science, we had marches for everything. This was the March and Rally for Science. And I agreed to be in Corvallis, be a marshal, and I had my vest. And my job was to keep people from cutting through the roses along the pathway. And I have never observed so much disobedience as that day. It was hilarious. I would say to people, hey, we're trying to take care of the roses. Please don't cut through. And they go, okay. And they walk right behind me. I mean, like right behind me and cut through the roses. It was pretty funny. You got to have a good sense of humor as well as, some skills. Okay. And then the other thing we thought might come up or might not come up, but it's a good thing to have in our toolbox when talking to people is, and the benefits to individuals of going to something like this. And I think it's Steve who's going to talk about that.
Nancy, my brain was someplace else. What do I get to talk about?
Okay, so we're gonna throw it open then. We'll take you off the hook. Okay, guys, this is where you get to chime in. What do you think the benefits of our neighbors, to our neighbors, of participating in a No King's Day? Jane.
Well, I always feel very uplifted and energetic, and it kind of keeps me going, like I'm kind of carried along by the enthusiasm and the just the shared, knowing other people are out there, and it does make you feel empowered and it restores some of your faith in humanity just to see all these people who you think, oh, given the chance, we'd all be working together instead of, spending our time doing this.
Fabulous. Anybody else? Come on. Johnny.
I just have to say, when I went, it was a release of all the tension and the anger, and meeting other people who were in the same mindset was just very freeing. I was not alone anymore.
Action is the antidote to anxiety.
Yes, Cheryl.
We just find, my husband and I do it together, and we just find it helps with the depression about everything that's going on. It makes you feel like you're doing something. And that's very helpful these days.
And the just the calculus of supporting each other is, if everyone comes and we see everyone is there, right? And we support each other. Yes. And I was talking to somebody before who, I've talked to a lot of people in the past 2 days, so it all blurs together, but talking about how I feel like in these conversations also, I'm channeling Bernie, because Bernie would always turn it around when people are like, who's gonna, how's it going to? And he would always turn it around and say, what are you gonna do? You have the power. And, it actually is totally appropriate in so many of the conversations I've been having with people. It's like when you are in the equation, it looks different to me and it really feels different to you, right? And so I agree, that's part of the empowerment, that you stop, being paralyzed or, depressed or whatever, and you become part of this action. Yeah, Carrie.
Yeah, many of us I know have been doing rallies and demonstrations our whole lives about, one thing or another. Certainly this time feels so much different, but I think it was right after the first big rally. I can't remember if it was called No Kings or not. That was in April, I think, sometime last spring. And after
Hands
that,
off.
Yeah, hands off. Thank you. After that, I was doing some errands and I had a button that on my vest, it said fighting fascism together. And I was like, getting dog food or something. And the clerk, a young woman, said, noticed, mentioned the button, and we were chatting. And I asked her if she'd been at the rally. And she said no. She said she was a naturalized citizen and she just didn't feel confident to go. She was kind of afraid. And I just heard myself saying, there were hundreds of people there for you. And it just really made me feel like, we're there raising our own voices. Our voices are louder because they are together. And we are also speaking for the people who genuinely cannot be there, and the rest of us can. So that's been something that, we've all, I guess I think I knew intellectually, but that really made me feel it, personally when that young woman said that. So that's another benefit to all of us for going, is knowing we're doing something for people who can't.
That is so wonderful. Thank you. And look, Steve has got his brains back. All right.
Well, I was going to make a small attempt to redeem myself and just say that the neighborhood leaders that shared how it made them feel, I mean, those were better said than I ever could in a role play. And the other thing is, other people pay attention, not only our side, but their side. Our elected officials all take note of a big group showing up and having something to say. And No Kings is going to be perfect because of that. They're going to get the message and it's going to be good. So thank you all.
Anyone else? Molly.
Hey, hi everybody. Well, it's on the heels of that, I will say that the other side, he who shall not be named, is hoping like crazy that people don't show up. So if your neighbors say, I've been looking for something I can do, this is a great opportunity, right? To be active, to love our country, show that we're standing up for democracy, and just be a loud voice. People do take note. Politicians do take note, right? So we need to be out there in numbers. So I'm excited. Here we go.
I think what's so wonderful I've found in Albany is all the kids who come, right? It's just, it's really, it's the future, and there they are. And in canvassing, I talked to 2 middle schoolers. I was looking for the older sister of one of them, and the younger sister always comes to the door. She's an 8th grader. And so I gave her the flyer and I was telling her about it when one of her friends materialized behind her and started saying, oh, they'd heard about it. It was so cool. Their friends were going. And it was really nice. And then I talked to a couple of high school kids who, were proxies answering the door. And ditto, they actually didn't know about it. And, when I explained, were really like, wow, that is cool. I'm going to go to that. And I said, with friends? And they were like, of course. So, and I will say, I don't know about other people who've been out, but so I have, actually I have 3 turfs. So I talked to probably 50 or more people, households this weekend. And I found that the minority really knew about the event and when and where it was going to be. And so going to both invite people and to give them the specifics was really important, right? So, just because we're plugged in, never assume that everyone is.
There's lots of ways for people to feel like they're doing something. And even if they can't attend, I give people the flyer, encourage them to send other people in their stead, drive by and honk themselves. People are very receptive to that. And I had one voter who, sadly, in the May election, we weren't in agreement. but she was all in today, wanted a whole bunch more flyers, is going to talk to a whole group of people she knows that are sympathetic. So, the more we can do this, the more we can encourage people. Hopefully it steamrolls. Hopefully we don't have enough marshals.
So, and something else today, if you do this regularly, there are certain people who have, very full lives and they're never at home or they don't open their doors or whatever. And so I would say to people, if I was talking to the neighbor or someone on the street, do you know so and so? And people, often would say, of course. And I go, well, can I give you one? Will you go invite them? And they'd be like, yes. So, that can work as well. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Wait, go ahead. Go ahead.
Somebody have something to say?
Just mute.
Lori?
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm really hoping this time for sure we can get over the 3.5% threshold and maybe even get 5 to 10%. And that would make me feel a lot better about it being worthwhile just to be doing this. It would be very encouraging and get back to this country to what it was meant to be, what it was set up to be, and
Right.
not what it's
Totally.
become. It's so important.
Totally agree.
When it starts affecting people's pocketbooks, then
Yeah.
maybe we'll start really seeing a lot
Really.
more people out there, but it's so much more than that.
Okay, Mark says 4% would be 14 million people. So,
Wow.
I think 12 million is really the goal for this. And that would be double the amount that came to the last one. And, things are
Okay.
incremental. And what we think about is if we get 12 million people, that's that many more people that are feeling, as Chris said, uplifted, empowered, and therefore talking to more people, right? So it's always exponential. And you do what you can where you are and know that it's going to grow. Yeah. Anybody else?
Paula has her hand up.
Paula. You want-
So how many years did we march for the war in Vietnam?
Um,
How many years did it take? How many marches did it take? How many people did it take? It took a lot and it took a while, but we got it done.
yeah.
So it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow. We need it to happen tomorrow, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. We just have to keep working on it and growing, and we're growing all the time. The resistance is growing all the time. So we're getting there. We just have to be a little more patient if we're not there tomorrow.
I think impatience is okay, but you're saying at the same time we have to have staying power, right? So I think both elements are really good, right? Saying I want to get there and saying, and I'm in it until we do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like we're getting a lot more help from the administration this time than we did in the 60s, in that they're just every day doing something that's bringing more people onto our side, and people respond. I mean, the thing in Chicago, yeah, enough said. Sarah.
Oh, get my audio. I've been sitting here scrolling through my emails. I've seen the statistics the last few days that just the last few weeks, polls on popularity or polls on various issues that for all people in the US, not just Democrats, the preserving democracy or saving democracy has actually gone up to one of the highest concerns
Really? Really?
Yeah. And I wish I could find it. I've been scrolling through all these emails. I should be able to get it. And I get this information from the Simon Rosenberg and his Substack and Hopium Chronicles. I don't know if anybody else
Yeah.
reads his stuff, but why can't I find it when I want to tell everybody
Well,
what it
as
is?
soon as you get off the Zoom, you'll find it immediately.
Of
You know.
course, but
Yeah.
it's just been great, and that I think this time around, obviously someone that spoke about a neighbor or someone they spoke to who now wants the flyers, but it's all about it's all about everyone is getting on board, as in we need to save our democracy. It sort of doesn't matter what your political background is. If democracy is dear to you, it's becoming a really big issue. So across the board.
And a number of people who can't be here tonight weighed in and said they're just having really uplifting experiences talking to their neighbors. And I'm finding it's so much more positive than during an election even. I mean, people are, first of all, people are opening their doors, which it's a little mysterious, but people are actually answering the doors more than I experience other times. And the people who sent me or told me I was canvassing and ran into a neighborhood leader as a turf, on down further, was walking with the child and like yelled across the street, "We canvassed 20 people this morning. It was great." So, and what people are finding is some people really need to talk, right? They're so encouraged by you coming and saying, "I'm doing this thing and I want to invite you to do this thing with me because I believe it makes a difference." That a lot of us, we just do this stuff every day. We do it, we do it, we do it. And you forget a little that when you do it, you are a role model, actually, of I believe in us. I believe in you. I believe in our ability to make a change. And what neighborhood leaders who've been out are finding that is super effective. People have a lot of worries, right? And having somebody say, "Here's a step towards the answer," is it's just a gift.
Many people have thanked me for bringing them the information.
Totally. And Bob's so right. I say we actually are having an election in Lynn County. So I say it's not election time. And then I say, well, actually, we are having an election on the, public safety levy, but whatever. But I say, I'm here to invite you. And, people are like, "Oh, really? That's great." So, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, so I think I'm gonna now, so these are, and we're not gonna stop on them, you're gonna get these, and these are they're in here, if they're useful to you. So, when you get this tomorrow, just check it out, and whatever is useful, use, and what's not, let it go. So again, remember, this is the vision of the country we want. And what's come up for me in a number of the conversations is, where are we going with this? And my personal belief is, if we're going to work this hard, let's come out the other side with something we really want and not just the status quo. So if that's, something that you relate to, these are the points we came up with. And then, part of that is, and we need to elect leaders who have that vision. And then we need to have the leaders who are already elected, we need to support them to be their best selves. And I think we're kind of seeing that with the Democratic leadership in Congress. And if you haven't called, your representatives, your senators, to thank them for holding the line, let them know we're just so appreciative. Right? Because we could be in Pennsylvania with John Fetterman. Woo! Okay. And then this is, what hurts the economy, just again, if that's useful to you. And then this is, who is causing the polarization and, the language that we use, and talking about who uses what language. Okay. So we are at least moderately prepared to do role plays, but what we were hoping for is that we're going to give a prompt. And that's right, Sarah, call Dan Rayfield's office and just tell him, how grateful we are for the work he's doing. What a great idea. And I suppose we could call Judge Immergut, but I'm not sure you're supposed to call judges and tell them that you're grateful for what they've done. Maria.
Just I dropped on the chat box there will be an ACLU training on protest rights on the 15th. This is part of the many trainings that you can find on the National No Kings website. And this is definitely recommend. They're usually exceptionally good training. So the link is there. And I'll also drop the link of the main website. Sorry, my head is pooped.
Thank you. Okay, so what we would love is you could pretend any of us is your neighbor, and we've asked you this question. And so, do these big events really make a difference? And would somebody, what are you going to say to your neighbor? Can we have a volunteer? Because we get to do this all the time. Johnny, woohoo!
Shocking, isn't it? Shocking, isn't it? So
it's gratifying.
Well, first of all, I would tell them it does make a difference.
You're talking to me. You're telling me I'm your neighbor.
Hi, Nancy. I just wanted to let you know why big numbers are important, why we should all come. It's been wonderful for me. It has helped my feelings of isolation and fear. I think that joining a group and safety in numbers, also, they're paying attention. They might not pretend, they're not acting like they're paying attention, but this is a scary thing to see large amounts of people get up and say, I don't want this anymore. This is wrong. So that's definitely a plus.
Thank you. Whoa. Yeah. Come on. Some love for Johnny. Okay. Anyone else? If you're raising your hand and I'm not seeing you, just speak up. Okay. Suzanne, despite your cold, you're unmuted. Suzanne, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm miserable. I don't know how much longer I can sit here. Anyway, although I don't have COVID, so plus. Excuse me. The other thing I find too is it's when you go to these things, you're in a group of people where you can ask a question that you feel comfortable asking that question while you're standing there holding your sign and waiting for the traffic to change. You can turn to somebody and say, how come you're here? Why do you think this is important? I kind of do. I feel like this is important for me. And it gives you a chance to have some of those community conversations where people might feel isolated, but say, hey, here's another person who's got similar questions. And sometimes you can get a whole group of people going on it. So it's a good opportunity for that. Give people that chance to express their concerns and questions.
That is great. And today, one of the people, I knocked on her door and she said, "Here's, let's sit on my stoop here." So we sat down and she was just so distraught, right? And depressed. And, we know how that is. And so we were talking, and then two of the neighbors came by with their dog. Okay, this, when you canvas, you meet a lot of animals. This was a rescue animal from Safe Haven, a little black and gray dog who was kind of nervous, but they all knew about giving it treats. And her name that she came with was Norma Jean. Okay, it was the best pet name that I probably ever heard because she was so not like Marilyn Monroe. It was just sweet. Anyway, the neighbors came and they started talking and they gave her a hug. And it's, when we do this work, we create community, and it was really nice, right? And you give people the opportunity to ask for what they need. I think that's what you're saying too, Suzanne, right? You get to ask for what you need, and not in a desperate way, just in a safe and comfortable way. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, regarding the importance of the large crowd size, we've reached out to our highly challenged local media a few times, and they don't have the people power to cover small things, but they can't help but cover something that gets large. So that really helps too in terms of larger messaging and reaching a larger audience.
Good point. That is a good point. Okay, I've got one. So what if someone says, I can't be there on the 18th. But like somebody told me that they're volunteering with the Forest Service, and they don't know if it's on or off, but then it might be on. So who knows? So good, good cause. Let's give it to her. She's got a good cause. Is there something else I can do? What are we proposing?
Well, people can
Definitely call
certainly,
Hey, Jeannie.
Sorry.
We can always call our elected officials and let them know how we feel. That's, I think, I think that's really important.
That is perfect. Thank you. And Susan, you were talking and Carrie has her hand up. So Susan, thank you.
oh, I was just going to say, you can also tell people who are not able to come to talk to their friends and family and see if they can encourage someone else to attend. I had a few people today who tell me they're disabled or, for various reasons can't be there. Well, that's fine. We all do what we can do, but they can invite other people.
And I tell people
great.
in that
Yeah.
same vein, I tell people it doesn't matter where they are. People are so connected around the country. And this is a national protest, and there's something in every state in many, many other communities. And people are open to that too.
Exactly. But I like that, take this leaflet, this flyer, and encourage someone else to come. What a good idea, Carrie.
I think Susan and Mark were on the same wavelength there. My thought was to say, here's 10 flyers. Do you know 10 people? I can get more. Give them to the grocery checker, give them to your, anybody you can think of, and don't worry, I'll get more.
I had two people that had already received flyers.
And I was on the porch of one of my neighbors, and someone came to pick up a buy nothing thing that she had. And so I was handing my neighbor the flyer. So I handed it. I said, "Would you like one?" She was like, "Sure." So I handed it to her and she said, "What is this?" So I explained, and she explained she had voted for Trump. And then we had a really interesting conversation. that I'm not going to go into details about, but I was glad I gave her the leaflet, right? Because I don't think it did any harm. And it's, who knows, right? So, okay, anybody else? Molly.
Well, and Nancy, along that line, I'm hearing and reading stories about people who did vote for He Who Shall Not Be Named, and the tide is turning, I think, from some of his supporters, including, split within the craziness itself. So, it doesn't ever hurt for people to see, oh, there are options. I have other options, right? And you're such a nice person and a reasonable person. And, she probably had a really good conversation as a result, right?
I mean, we did. We had a nice conversation. I'm completely baffled. I think, both she left, my neighbor and I just look at each other and went like this because, she was talking about she is a pastor's wife and their church is, based on love and whatever. It was just like, okay. And so, but, okay.
But it gave a little wedge, right? It gave something.
But you're right about the talking to people. I mean, just that exercise of not saying, "Oh, you voted for Trump, I can't talk to you," like neither of us missed a beat. It was just like, well, okay. Yeah, anybody else? Okay, and then do people feel like, if somebody says, will it be safe? You got it. You know what you're going to say. I want to see nods, whatever. Suzanne, okay, are you saying yes or you want to talk? Okay, you're good. Okay. Mark Leonard raised his hand.
Oh, I had something and then it went out of my head when Suzanne went like this.
Okay. So, and I want to, this is just in my mind, so I'm going to share it because you are my community. We had the banner drop in Albany, and I was leaving a couple of minutes early, and we're up on the Route 20 overpass. So I'm walking down on the north side of the overpass, and then I have to walk down to the crosswalk. I have to cross over, the Home Depot Road. Then I have to cross over Route 20. So I got a lot of crossing. And, if you haven't seen me in person, I am not a big person. I'm clearly an old person. And I'm carrying a sign, but I'm carrying it so you can't see what it says. And then I'm carrying 2 pool noodles with hands attached. So, I just look like this little old lady with 2 pool noodles walking along. And there's 3 lanes over in traffic is a young man in a pickup. And he stopped at the light as I'm walking along. And he starts shrieking at me. And every other word out of his mouth is fuck or fucking. And he's just shrieking at me. And, he's in his car. He's not going to hurt me, whatever. But everybody who's around and in cars, it's like it's backfiring on him. You know what I mean? Like, here is this young man shrieking at his grandmother profanities. And, I don't wish on any of you that it happens to you, but it's simply by being present and doing things. There are many ways in which we send a message. How about that? Johnny, you unmuted. Are you preparing
I'm
to?
sorry. I'm just.
Okay. I want to just show you the good of the order because a bunch of stuff is coming up. These are obviously later. They're Ice Watch and Human Rights Observer training if you're interested. But then the other thing is I don't know if anybody knows about Protect Oregon, but that is specifically about if you want updates on the troop deployments and what's going on. And, you know, they're not barraging you, but it's good information to kind of keep posted. Anybody, the banner drop is a blast. Anybody who wants to do it, here is the email that you send it to, and you can be drawn in and participate. You Benton County people, Val is having a town hall